Why was everyone staring at her like she didn't belong? That question hung in Lieutenant Avery Thorne's mind as she crossed the sunburnt concrete of Naval Special Warfare Training Facility Coronado. The California heat pressed down, relentless. Sweat rolled under her collar, though her stride never faltered. Around her, men barked orders, boots thudded, and the metallic clatter of weapons echoed across the yard. But all sound seemed to fade as eyes followed her, curious, mocking, or worse, dismissive. She expected it. She'd trained for it. But it still hit somewhere deep, that familiar sting of being written off before she'd even spoken. Pentagon's latest joke, one voice murmured from a training pit. Diversity hire. Another snickered, probably here to file reports, not run drills. Avery said nothing. She simply adjusted her duffel bag and kept walking. The checkpoint guard, Petty Officer Walsh, didn't even hide his confusion when she handed him her paperwork. Ma'am, this can't be right. This is SEAL training grounds. Support staff orientation, over at North Island. No mistake, Petty Officer, she replied evenly. Please process my arrival. He stared at her ID again. Naval Intelligence. His tone carried disbelief, like the words themselves were an insult. Before he could argue further, he made a quick call, voice dropping but not low enough. Captain, sorry to bother you, sir. There's a lieutenant here with orders you might want to see. Yes, sir. A woman. When he hung up, he slid her visitor badge across the counter, his face twisting into a smirk. Someone'll meet you at administration. Good luck, ma'am. She clipped the badge to her uniform and moved through the gate, the first woman in years to step into a facility meant for the toughest men alive. From the second-floor office overlooking the compound, Commander Royce Blackwood watched her approach. The man was built like the word authority itself, square shoulders, rigid jaw, eyes hardened by decades of command. Her file sat open on his desk, though most of it was blacked out with thick redactions. The visible portions were sparse: special assignment, direct Pentagon authorization, full access to facility personnel and programs. Blackwood frowned. This is political, he muttered to his aide. Admiral's pet project, some PR stunt to tick boxes. Should I stonewall her, sir? No, Blackwood's lips curved into a cold smile. Give her what she wants, full access, full participation. Let's see how long she lasts. 30 minutes later, Avery stood in front of his desk at parade rest. The commander didn't look up right away, instead scrolling through his email as if she weren't there. Power move. Classic. She'd seen it before in every male-dominated command she'd infiltrated, observed, or outperformed. Finally, he leaned back, crossing his arms. Lieutenant Thorne, welcome to the real Navy. Thank you, Commander. Your orders are vague. His voice was sharp, testing. Care to explain your purpose here? I'm here to evaluate close quarters combat protocols and recommend improvements based on recent field data. Blackwood's laugh was short, derisive. You're here to evaluate my SEAL instructors. That's rich. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Tell me, what exactly qualifies you for this assignment? That information is classified, sir. Of course it is. He circled his desk slowly, towering over her. Let me be clear, Lieutenant. You'll get your access. You'll write your little report, and then you'll leave, because no one who's never seen combat gets to dictate how we train warriors. Am I understood? Perfectly, sir. Blackwood smirked. Good. There's a briefing in 5 minutes. Let's introduce you to the team. The room fell silent as she entered behind him. 12 seasoned instructors turned their heads, eyes narrowing as if she'd walked into a temple she had no right to enter. Gentlemen, Blackwood said, gesturing casually in her direction. Lieutenant Thorne from Naval Intelligence. She'll be evaluating our CQC program for a few weeks. The Pentagon apparently wants a fresh perspective. The sarcasm hung heavy in the air. One of the instructors stood, Master Chief Laram, built like a prizefighter, scars mapping the years across his knuckles. "With respect, sir," he said to Blackwood, not even glancing at her, "we're 3 weeks from deployment selection. What's she doing here?" "Following orders same as us," Blackwood replied. "Now if there are no further questions." Avery caught the smirks, the whispered jokes, the sideways glances. She'd been in worse rooms, facing worse men, but the contempt still burned. As the meeting ended, she overheard a voice mutter behind her, "Isn't Thorne the name of that officer who—" A quick shushing gesture cut it off. Whatever they thought they knew, it was enough to make them wary. That night the mess hall buzzed with low conversation. Avery sat alone, eating methodically, pretending to read a tactical manual. Across from her, several instructors, led by Chief Petty Officer Reeves, sat just loud enough for her to hear. "You know what they're calling this," Reeves said, grinning. "Operation Powder Puff. Bureaucrats sending us babysitters instead of brothers." "Wonder how many strings she pulled to land this gig," another added. "Definitely wasn't skill." Laughter rippled around the table. Avery didn't flinch. She turned a page calmly, every muscle under control. Reeves leaned closer. "Hey, Lieutenant, quick question. How many combat drops you got under your belt?" She looked up, met his gaze for 3 seconds, long enough for his smirk to falter, then closed her book, gathered her tray, and walked away. She didn't need to win this fight in the mess hall. There would be a better time. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin. The facility lights cast long, thin shadows over the training fields. A figure lingered by the path, Ensign Kazemi, the only other woman on base, a language and cultural instructor. Her gaze was sharp, curious. As Avery passed, her sleeve slipped just enough to reveal a faint scar across her forearm, old, deliberate. Kazemi's eyes flicked to it immediately, recognition flashing for just a heartbeat. Avery tugged her sleeve back down, offered a polite nod, and continued toward her quarters. Inside, the room was plain: a single bed, a desk, a small locker. She unpacked with quiet precision, each motion deliberate. A worn photograph came out of her duffel. She studied it briefly, then placed it face down in the drawer. Next, a small black notebook, the kind used by operatives who didn't trust digital storage. Her handwriting filled it in neat, cryptic shorthand. Notes about the base, the people, the patterns. Her secure phone vibrated once. Confirmation required, midnight. She typed a single letter in reply. She then deleted the message. By dawn, she was already on the obstacle course. Alone. Her boots hit the ground in rhythmic cadence, precise, relentless. She didn't need witnesses, she needed readiness. She vaulted walls, crawled under wire, sprinted through sand pits, a machine wrapped in calm human form. When she finished, the sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft gold. "You've got an impressive time," a voice said. Avery turned. It was Master Chief Laram again, watching from the shadows near the gate. "Most candidates don't clear that wall until week 6, he said, studying her. "What did you expect, Master Chief?" she asked evenly. He shrugged. "Someone who'd make speeches about equality, throw around Pentagon authority. You're not that." "I take fitness seriously." Clearly, his expression softened just slightly. "You're not what I expected, Lieutenant. Your file says administration. Your performance says something else. Something trained." She gave the faintest smile. "I suppose files can be misleading." He nodded once, as if that confirmed something for him. "Combat drills start at 800. You'll be observing. Blackwood assigned Reeves to supervise you." Of course he did. Laram's lips curved, half amusement, half warning. "Reeves is an ass, but he's good. Most of them are. Just tread carefully, Lieutenant. This community protects its own." At precisely 800, she stepped into the combat training area, a wide matted room ringed by racks of weapons. Reeves was already there, barking commands at 20 SEAL candidates. He didn't acknowledge her arrival. Today's exercise, hostile extraction in confined spaces, he announced. Objective, neutralize the target silently. Take them alive when possible. Avery stayed at the back, quietly observing. Their technique was good, controlled, deadly. But she saw the flaws instantly, angles exposed, footwork heavy, over-reliance on muscle instead of momentum. She jotted notes in her black notebook, lost in calculation. Then she felt a presence, Commander Blackwood, standing behind her. Enjoying the show, Lieutenant. This is what real training looks like, not whatever desk job you came from. She closed the notebook. Actually, sir, I'm noting several tactical vulnerabilities in your CQC program. Oh, his tone was mocking. Please enlighten us. The rear chokehold exposes the aggressor's kidney region for too long. A trained counter could reverse the position with minimal effort. Reeves turned, bristling. That technique, been field-tested in 4 combat theaters, Lieutenant. It works. Until it doesn't, she said simply. Blackwood's smile was thin. Tomorrow, you'll have the chance to demonstrate, Lieutenant. Master Chief Laram runs our hand-to-hand program. Try not to get hurt. As he walked away, Avery caught sight of Casimir near the door, speaking in low tones to a man whose face she couldn't see. When Casimir noticed her looking, she ended the conversation abruptly, her expression unreadable. Avery's instincts stirred. Something beneath this assignment wasn't adding up, and whatever it was, it started here, inside Coronado's walls. Because she wasn't just here to evaluate. She was here to uncover something. Something that had already gotten good men killed. And tomorrow would be the first test. Why did the training room feel more like an execution chamber than a gym? That was Avery's first thought when she walked into the mat room the next morning. The air was thick with anticipation, that particular kind of silence that comes before blood is spilled. Every instructor was there, every recruit, and Commander Blackwood stood at the edge of the ring, arms crossed, wearing the same faint, cruel smile. Word had spread fast about her comments yesterday. The lieutenant from Naval Intelligence who had dared to critique SEAL combat methods. They didn't see her as a visitor now. They saw her as a challenge, a threat. Master Chief Laram stood in the center of the mat, his voice carrying across the room. Attention! The chatter died instantly. Today, he announced, we're testing threat neutralization under pressure. Lieutenant Thorne has volunteered to demonstrate the Pentagon-approved combat techniques. The sarcasm was deliberate. The crowd chuckled. Avery stepped forward without hesitation, removing her uniform blouse to reveal a fitted black t-shirt. Her movements were slow, calm, like a surgeon preparing for a procedure she'd done 100 times. Across from her, Chief Reeves cracked his neck and grinned. He was twice her size, built like a wall, with arms that looked like they could bend steel. "Don't worry," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'll go easy on you. Wouldn't want the paperwork if something snaps." More laughter. Avery simply adjusted her stance, not a word. From the sidelines, Blackwood raised a hand. "Standard CQC rules," he called. "First submission or my discretion." Laram nodded. "Begin." Reeves came at her instantly, a charging bull. He wanted to end it fast, to humiliate her in front of everyone. His tactic was raw strength and forward momentum. He expected her to dodge. She didn't. At the last second, she pivoted, not backwards, sideways. Her body slipped just enough for his momentum to betray him. One fluid movement, then crack. Reeves staggered, clutching his forearm, disbelief flashing across his face. The room froze. She hadn't even moved fast. It was too clean, too surgical. To most, it looked like a fluke, but anyone with combat experience recognized it for what it was: control, precision, and mastery. Reeves blinked, shook out his arm, and came again, this time cautious, circling. His pride wouldn't let him back down. He feinted left, lunged right, textbook aggression. Avery's stance barely shifted. She used angles, not force. He reached for her collar, she flowed around the grab, redirecting him. Another takedown, controlled, efficient, non-lethal. And that made it worse. The crowd wasn't cheering now. The laughter had vanished. Reeves' frustration turned to anger. He started attacking harder, faster, losing control. Sweat flew, boots scuffed, but every strike found empty air. Every grab ended with him on the floor. Enough, Laram called, but Reeves didn't stop. He swept low, a dirty move, aiming for her knee, the kind that could end a career. Avery reacted instantly. She moved inside his guard, her hand locking his extended arm at a precise biomechanical angle. A twist, a shift of weight. Then the unmistakable, chilling snap of a joint giving way. Reeves screamed, collapsing to his knees, clutching his arm. The silence that followed was electric. No one breathed, no one moved. Avery stood motionless, expression calm, chest rising with slow, even breaths. She hadn't broken a sweat. Blackwood stepped forward, his eyes wide with disbelief and a hint of fury. "Where the hell did you learn to fight like that, Lieutenant?" She met his stare without flinching. "That's classified, Commander." And then she turned, retrieved her blouse and walked out of the room. No one stopped her. Not one of the elite warriors watching dared to. Outside, the sunlight hit her face like cold interrogation lamps. She didn't blink. Her pulse was steady, but inside, something deeper stirred. It wasn't pride, it wasn't satisfaction, it was memory. Blood Sand screams. Kandahar 2022. Her team. The mission that had gone wrong, the ambush, the silence, the orders that never came. Kingfisher. She exhaled slowly, pushing the ghosts back down. This wasn't the time. She had come here for answers, and now she had the attention she needed. That afternoon, she found herself alone in the secure records room, reviewing deployment files under the guise of evaluating training procedures. The fluorescent light flickered overhead. Her fingers moved across paper, scanning mission parameters, logistics, communication trails. Every page deepened the knot in her stomach. Operation Stillwater. Deployment date classified. Objective classified. Location familiar. Too familiar. The target zone, extraction window, even the handler chain mirrored Kingfisher. It wasn't coincidence. Someone was replicating a failed mission, and 20 new operators were about to die for it. She closed the folder, jaw tightening. This wasn't about policy or training. This was about betrayal. That night she returned to her quarters and stopped. The door was open by half an inch. A quiet alarm went off in her head. No sound, no movement inside, but she could feel it, the subtle disturbance of a room that had been entered and carefully reassembled. She drew her sidearm, cleared the corners methodically. Empty, nothing missing, nothing broken. Except her trust. Someone had been inside, and whoever it was had the skill to make it look like nothing had changed. A knock sounded suddenly, 3 sharp raps. Avery turned, weapon raised. "Lieutenant," a voice called quietly, "it's Senior Chief Navarro." She hesitated, then opened the door. Navarro stood in the hall, posture tense, eyes darting. He stepped in quickly, closing the door behind him. "You're not really here about combat training, are you?" She said nothing. He continued, voice low. 3 men from my last team are dead. Mission looked just like the one Blackwood's preparing for. Then you show up with no background, no records, and moves like a damn ghost. Doesn't take a genius. What's your point, Chief? He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small flash drive. Operation Kingfisher, 6 months ago. 3 KIA, 1 unaccounted for. Officially, that survivor was a male intel officer, but I've seen the footage. It was you. She didn't answer. He placed the drive on her desk. If you're here to find who leaked that mission, you'll want this. It's all I have." Before she could respond, another knock sounded sharper, more official. Avery pocketed the flash drive. "Sit down," she whispered. He obeyed. She opened the door. Ensign Kazumi stood there, her face pale. "Lieutenant, Commander Blackwood requests your presence at an emergency instructor meeting. Immediately." "Thank you, Ensign. I'll be right there." When Kazumi left, Avery turned back to Navarro. "We'll continue this later." He nodded once. "Be careful who you trust." But there was no meeting. As soon as they were alone in the stairwell, Kazumi stopped, lowering her voice. "I had to speak to you privately." Avery's hand drifted toward her concealed weapon. "About what?" "The scar on your arm." Kazumi's tone trembled between fear and certainty. "Kandahar, 2022, you were there. You saved my brother's unit." "You're mistaken." Kazumi's eyes glistened. "Then why do I have a photo of you in his wallet, the woman they called the Ghost?" Avery moved fast, pressing her forearm gently but firmly across Kazumi's throat, not to hurt but to silence. "Listen to me carefully. Whoever you think I am, forget it, for your safety and mine. Understood?" Kazumi nodded, barely breathing. But when Avery released her, the young ensign whispered, "People are going to die again. I can help you." "How?" "I have access to communications logs. I can trace base transmissions, even encrypted ones." Avery studied her. "Why risk your career?" "Because my brother told me about that night. How command abandoned them. How a lone operator fought 6 hostiles alone. He said if I ever met a woman with a cross-shaped scar on her right arm, I should trust her with my life." Silence filled the stairwell. Avery turned away, her voice quiet. "Whoever she was, she's dead now." Kazumi's next words froze her. "If you say so, Commander." "The rank, not lieutenant." Someone had talked. Her cover wasn't just fragile anymore, it was cracking. That night, sleep didn't come. She sat on her bed, the flash drive in one hand, her black notebook in the other. The pieces were aligning: Blackwood's arrogance, the repeated mission parameters, the hidden surveillance. But there was more. She could feel it, someone above Blackwood, someone pulling the strings. Her phone buzzed once. "Midnight, northeast perimeter, blind spot in fence." A covert meet. She moved out silently, every step mapped to avoid patrols. At the fence line, a figure waited, face shadowed. "You're late," the man said. "Unavoidable," she replied. "I'm being watched." He nodded. "You'll get your insertion in 3 days. Identify the leak before then. 3 men died last time. Don't let it happen again." The word hit her like a blade. Again. Before she could ask more, he was gone. Avery lingered in the dark for a long moment, processing what she'd heard. Then, from the corner of her eye, movement. A flicker of shadow disappearing behind a shed 50 yards away. Someone had been watching. She doubled back silently, circling wide. The spot was empty, only disturbed dirt and footprints fading in the sand. Whoever it was had vanished, but they were skilled. Too skilled for a recruit. She returned to her quarters before dawn. This mission wasn't an evaluation anymore. It was a war of ghosts, and she was walking straight into the middle of it. Why did the air feel colder that morning? It wasn't the weather, it was the shift, the glances, the silence that fell when she entered the room. Something had changed. Word had spread. Everyone had seen what she'd done to Reeves, how the intel officer had snapped the instructor's arm like she'd been born on a battlefield. Now they didn't mock her. They watched her. The gym was full when she arrived, instructors, trainees, even off-duty personnel lingering under the excuse of observation. Master Chief Laram stood in the center of the mat, his voice cutting through the murmur. "Today we're evaluating response against multiple aggressors." He glanced toward her. "Lieutenant Thorne will be demonstrating." Reeves was there too, his arm in a sling, eyes burning with humiliation. Avery knew what this was: not training, retribution. 3 instructors stepped forward, all built like him, all smirking. Laram raised his hand. Standard rules, non-lethal, begin. The first one came fast, too fast for an opening move. He wanted the glory of being the man who dropped her. Avery sidestepped, redirected his weight, dropped him with a single twist. He hit the mat hard, air leaving his lungs in a single choking gasp. The crowd went silent. The second man was smarter, probing, feinting, testing her defense. She let him, reading his rhythm, letting him believe he'd found an opening. When he finally struck, she reversed him in 3 movements, a ghost's dance of precision and leverage. He tapped out instantly. The third hesitated. That hesitation was his mistake. She ended it in seconds, an arm bar, clean and efficient. When she stood, all 3 men were on the mat. Not one had touched her. Blackwood stepped forward, slow applause echoing through the stunned silence. "Impressive display, Lieutenant." His tone dripped with poison. "Almost as if you've had training beyond what naval intelligence provides." "Thank you, sir," she replied coolly. He gestured toward a man beside him, a civilian in plain clothes, hard eyes and military posture. "This is Mr. Wilson from the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. He has questions about your credentials." Avery's instincts sharpened instantly. Wilson was duty, his stance, his calm. This was someone used to field work. "I'll need to review your file, Lieutenant," he said. "There seem to be inconsistencies." "Then you'll have to contact Naval Intelligence directly," she replied, voice even. "My records are compartmentalized." "That's not standard procedure." Neither is questioning a cleared officer without authorization. The tension between them was palpable. Blackwood finally intervened. "You're dismissed for now, Lieutenant." She nodded once, turned and walked out, feeling both men's eyes follow her. That night in the mess hall, the mood had shifted again. The mockery was gone, replaced by wary respect and something else: fear. Reeves sat across from her, ignoring his arm brace. His smile was too calm to be genuine. "Mind if I join you, Lieutenant?" Without waiting for permission, he sat down. His entourage fanned out behind him like a wall. "I've been thinking about our little match," he said, tone casual. "Not every day someone gets the drop on me." "There's always room for improvement," she replied, cutting her food with deliberate calm. He chuckled. "Exactly my thought. Tell me, those moves you used, where'd you learn them? Doesn't look like standard intel training to me." "Standard enough." He leaned in, voice dropping. "You can drop the act. Those were Tier 1 techniques. Black Ops. I've seen them before, once from a ghost unit we weren't supposed to talk about." She kept her eyes on her plate. "Rumors are dangerous, Chief." "So's lying," he murmured. "Word is you're here investigating something. That true?" Before she could answer, a voice cut through the hall. "Captain on deck." Everyone stood as a new figure entered, clean cut, quiet authority radiating from every movement. "Captain Vega, Naval Intelligence," the man announced. Avery's stomach dropped. Her handler, or so she'd been told. They stepped into the corridor outside the mess. "Walk with me, Lieutenant," Vega said. Once they were out of earshot, his tone shifted. "Your cover's compromised. Wilson's not. He's private, hired by Blackwood." "I suspected as much." "You need to accelerate the timeline. Have you identified the leak?" "Not yet, but the mission they're prepping, Stillwater, it's identical to Kingfisher." Vega nodded grimly. "And the leak cost us 3 operators last time." Her jaw clenched. "Her team." He handed her a secure phone. "Use this if you find proof. I've arranged access to the server room tonight. Official reason: system maintenance." I have an ally who can help me access communications logs, she said quietly. Vega's brow furrowed. Who? Ensign Kazumi. She's not cleared for this operation. She recognized me from Kandahar. His expression hardened. That's a problem. Your identity was buried for a reason. Keep her out of this. She saved my access. Without her, I'd be blind. Vega sighed, glancing around. Fine, but tread carefully, and Thorn. Yes, sir. If you're caught, I never sent you. Then he was gone. Avery spent the next few hours in the communications center under the cover of system evaluation. Her access credentials got her past the first security layer. The rest was manual, a dance of authorization codes, bypasses, and sleight of hand. Lines of data scrolled across her monitor, deployment rosters, mission orders, encrypted transmissions. Every file she opened brought her closer to a pattern: briefings held off-record, unsanctioned encrypted messages, and strange time stamps aligning with Kingfisher's collapse. She was so deep in the data, she almost missed the reflection in the monitor, a shadow moving behind her. You can come in, Ensign, she said without turning. Lurking looks suspicious. Kazumi stepped in, holding a tablet. You were right. Blackwood been using a personal device for secure comms. It's off-network, encrypted with military-grade algorithms. Can you access it? Not remotely. It's biometric locked, facial and fingerprint recognition. Avery nodded. Then we'll need physical access. Kazumi hesitated. Breaking into a commander's quarters could end both our careers. Not breaking in, Avery said softly. Reallocating oversight authority. Kazumi blinked. That's a very fancy way of saying breaking in. Avery gave a ghost of a smile. Then I'll take the fall alone. At 21:45, the facility was dark except for the perimeter lights and the faint glow of the admin building. Avery prepped her equipment: compact tools, signal jammer, biometric bypass module. Her phone buzzed. Abort, server room compromised. The message came from Vega's number. Her pulse spiked. If Vega was warning her, someone had discovered their plan. But what if the warning wasn't from Vega? She needed confirmation, fast. She took a detour to Kazumi's office. The ensign was mid-briefing with operators, her expression perfectly composed. Avery caught her eye, drew 2 fingers across her throat, the silent signal to abort. Kazumi's hand paused mid-gesture, but she nodded. Message received. Avery turned, heading for her quarters, but halfway down the corridor, she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. A tale, too, actually. One obvious, one subtle. She diverted into the base library, dark, empty, quiet. Sat at a table facing the entrance, pretending to read a manual. A moment later, the first tale entered Master Chief Laram. He didn't pretend, he walked straight over. Mind if I join you, Lieutenant? Not at all, she said calmly. He sat, lowering his voice. You're being set up. Blackwood told security the server room was breached. They're watching for you. Why tell me? Because I was on the QRF for Kingfisher. His eyes hardened. We got the distress call. We were ordered to stand down. Avery's chest tightened. Laram's tone was steady, but she could hear the guilt buried beneath it. 3 men died because of that call. You were listed KIA. I recognized your style the moment you fought Reeves. That's quite an accusation. Not accusation, fact. He leaned closer. I pulled your file. Lieutenant Avery Thorne died 3 years ago in a training accident. So whoever you are, you're operating under a burned identity. Avery said nothing. Her silence confirmed more than words ever could. Laram slid a small notebook across the table. Everything you're looking for is in there: names, accounts, dates. Enough to start an official inquiry. Why not bring it yourself? I did, he said bitterly. It disappeared, and I got flagged for psychiatric evaluation. She studied his face, steady, haunted, believable. If I take this, there's no going back. You were already gone the day you walked in here, he said quietly. Use it before they bury Stillwater like they buried Kingfisher. He stood, leaving the notebook behind. When the door closed, Avery opened it. What she saw made her blood run cold. Names she recognized, transfer orders, payment trails, communications with external contractors. It wasn't just Blackwood. It went higher, much higher. Later, as she moved through the empty corridors, she caught sight of Kazumi hurrying toward her. They're holding an emergency meeting, Kazumi whispered. Security breach. Your name came up. How long ago? 10 minutes. Blackwood, Vega, Wilson, all there. Avery's thoughts sharpened. Perfect, that buys me time. For what? To pay Blackwood's office a visit. Kazumi's eyes widened. That's insane. Do you trust me? A pause, then, yes, God help me, yes. Then start a comms diagnostic in 15 minutes. It'll draw attention away from his quarters for 10 minutes. That's all I need. Kazumi nodded. What are you looking for? Proof. She glanced once at the notebook in her pocket. Proof that's going to stop a war. 15 minutes later, Avery was scaling the exterior of the officers' quarters under the cover of darkness. The building was quiet, too quiet. She reached Blackwood's window, bypassed the sensor with a magnetic override, and slipped inside. Everything was perfect, military neat, precise, sterile. No photos, no personal effects. Her scanner found 2 cameras, one in the smoke detector, one in the outlet. Standard security. She jammed both, created a 15-meter blind spot, and moved to the desk. A locked laptop, physical lock, biometric. She connected her bypass module. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Trap, get out now. Her breath froze. She yanked her gear free, restoring everything exactly as it had been. Then the door. Keycard turning. She flattened against the wall behind it. Reeves' voice, clear the main room. Wilson's reply, check the bedroom. Her pulse slowed to combat tempo. Reeves stepped through the doorway, weapon raised. He turned left. Avery moved like lightning. Arm around his throat, weapon hand neutralized, pressure applied. He slumped silently. Wilson entered next and met the same fate. 2 bodies unconscious, no blood, no noise. The alarm blared outside. The diversion Kazumi had triggered right on time. She reconnected the bypass, accessed the laptop. The screen lit up, files poured in. Operation Stillwater. Kingfisher. Vega's name. She copied everything to a secure drive, snapped photos of a physical planner, and climbed out the window just as floodlights lit the building. Her boots hit the ground as security teams converged. The comms alarm shifted tone, not a drill this time. Base lockdown initiated. Then a voice thundered over the loudspeakers. Attention all personnel, intruder on base, posing as Lieutenant Avery Thorne, armed and dangerous. Blackwood's voice. Her heart turned to ice. Her cover wasn't compromised anymore. It was gone. How fast can a person vanish inside a military base? That question defined Avery Thorne's next few minutes. The alarms howled across Coronado, red lights flashing, orders barking through radios, boots pounding on concrete. The calm discipline of training had turned into chaos. And at the center of it, the woman they once ignored, now branded as a ghost turned traitor. She sprinted through the narrow maintenance corridor behind the admin wing, heart steady, breath measured. Her mind was a map, every exit, every blind corner, every camera angle memorized. The loudspeakers blared her name again. Lieutenant Avery Thorne, surrender immediately. You are under arrest for espionage and unauthorized access to classified data. She smirked. That's one way to rewrite history. Up ahead, a shadow moved, a flashlight beam cutting across the hall. She pressed herself flat against the wall, waited, counted footsteps. 2 guards, young, nervous. She moved when they turned. Swift, silent. Disarmed one swept the other's legs, caught both before they hit the ground. She dragged them behind a storage rack, whispered, "Stay down. You're not my enemy." Then she slipped away. In the command center, Commander Blackwood watched the security feeds with a predator's focus. "Lock every gate, shut down the pier," he barked. "She's not leaving this base." Wilson stood beside him, rubbing his neck. "She took 2 of my men out like they were recruits. She's trained, not intel. Spec ops, maybe black file." Blackwood's jaw clenched. "Then she's exactly who I thought she was, the survivor from Kingfisher." "Impossible. That operation was buried." "Not deep enough." He turned toward the screen showing the perimeter fence. "Find her, and bring her in alive." A pause, then with quiet malice, "If possible." Outside, rain had begun to fall, soft at first, then heavy, drenching the compound in streaks of silver. Avery moved like a shadow between barracks, slipping from light to light. Her boots were soaked, her uniform darkened, blending with the storm. She reached the armory's back entrance, locked, 2 guards posted. Her earpiece crackled. Kazimi's voice. "Lieutenant, it's me. I'm in the comms tower. I can loop cameras for 90 seconds at a time, but I can't do much more." "Good work," Avery whispered. "Can you trace Vega?" "Already did. He's in the north hangar with Blackwood." That didn't make sense. Vega was her handler. Why would he? "Kazimi, listen carefully," she said. "If I don't make it out, wipe every trace of me from the system. Understood?" Silence, then a soft reply. "No, ma'am, that's not an order I'm following." Avery smiled faintly. "That's insubordination." "Guess you trained me too well." The line went dead. Inside the armory, Avery loaded a small tactical kit, standard issue but modified with precision. Flashbangs, tranquilizers, and a single suppressed sidearm. She wasn't here to kill. She was here to survive and to finish what she'd started. Her reflection in the weapon's metal surface stared back, calm, focused, eyes hollowed by purpose. "You were supposed to be dead," she whispered to herself. "Maybe that's still true." At 2:20 hours, she approached the north hangar, rain pouring so hard it blurred the floodlights. Through the haze, she saw them. Blackwood and Vega standing over a console, Wilson nearby with 2 armed guards. Her pulse slowed, her thoughts sharpened. She crept closer, using the noise of rain to mask her steps. Vega's voice was faint but cold. "She has the drive. If she transmits that data, it's over. The entire network burns." Blackwood replied, "Then we stop her before she does. She's too good for brute force. We need containment, psychological." A pause. Then Blackwood asked, "Does she know about you?" Vega didn't answer. Avery's stomach twisted. She replayed his words, psychological containment. It wasn't a mission anymore. It was manipulation. She felt the truth hit her like a gunshot. Vega wasn't her ally. He was part of it. Avery retreated into the shadows, her breath steady but sharp. Every fragment of trust she'd held shattered into focus. Kingfisher hadn't been a tactical failure. It had been engineered. And the man who'd pulled her out alive was the same man who'd put her there to die. Back inside the hangar, Blackwood slammed a fist on the table. "You told me she was loyal." "She was," Vega said quietly, "until you made it personal. You said you could control her." "I can," Vega murmured almost to himself. "I just have to remind her what she lost." He took out a photo, worn, folded, water-stained. A man in desert fatigues. Avery froze in the shadows. Her throat tightened. That photo, she knew it. Captain Elias Thorne, her brother. The one who died in Kingfisher. Vega continued. Her brother's death was necessary. He discovered the double ops funding trail before I did. I had to contain the leak. She was never supposed to survive. Blackwood's face darkened, and now we erase her for good. Avery's hand trembled around her weapon. For the first time since Kandahar, she felt something dangerous stir, rage. Pure, focused, lethal. But she couldn't act yet, not here, not surrounded. She withdrew silently, rain masking the sound of her breath. Back in the comms tower, Kazumi jumped when Avery appeared, soaked, mud-streaked, eyes blazing. "He killed him," Avery said flatly. "Vega killed my brother. Blackwood helped cover it." Kazumi stared in shock. Then everything Stillwater, the infiltration. "It's a laundering ring," Avery interrupted. "Fake missions, siphoned funds, disposable teams. Kingfisher was the prototype." Kazumi swallowed hard. "And they're about to do it again." Avery nodded. "Unless we burn them first." She pulled the secure drive from her pocket. "This has everything, enough to expose them." "Then we send it now." Avery shook her head. "No, the main uplink routes through Blackwood's office. We need to transmit directly from his terminal." "That's suicide." "Not if we move before they expect it." They planned fast, 2 minutes of whispered coordination, no wasted words. Kazumi would trigger a base-wide system, reset temporary blackout, 60 seconds. In that window, Avery would reach the office, plug the drive, and transmit the files to an off-site encrypted channel. Then she'd run. If she made it that far. At 300, the blackout hit. Every light on the base went dark. A chorus of confused voices rose across the compound. Avery moved through it like smoke. She reached the admin building, bypassed the door lock with Kazumi's override key, and slipped inside. The office was empty. She crossed to the desk, connected the drive, and began transmission. 15%, 20, 40. Then static on her earpiece. Kazumi's voice. "Avery, they're coming. Blackwood's team is moving toward you." "Keep the power cut," Avery ordered. "Already on it. Wait, Vega's with them. He's armed." "Copy." 60%. 80. 95. Then the lights flickered back on. She turned just as the door burst open. Blackwood entered first, weapon raised. Vega followed, eyes dark, expression unreadable. "So it's true," Blackwood said. "You were the ghost." Avery stood between them and the terminal. "And you were the traitor." Vega sighed. "You should have stayed dead, Avery." She looked at him, really looked. The man she'd once trusted with her extraction. The voice that had guided her through the worst night of her life. "You killed my brother." His face didn't change. "He gave me no choice." "There's always a choice." Blackwood moved closer, step away from the console. Avery smiled faintly. "Transmission's complete." Vega froze. "You're lying." The screen behind her blinked once. "Upload successful." Vega lunged. Avery fired one clean shot to the leg, dropping him instantly. Blackwood charged. She sidestepped, swept his feet, disarmed him with the same precision that had humiliated Reeves. But he was stronger. He caught her wrist, slammed her into the desk. Pain flared up her arm, white-hot. "Everything you touch dies, Lieutenant," he snarled. "Then I'll make this count." She drove her elbow into his throat, twisted free, and slammed his head against the console. The monitor cracked. For a heartbeat there was silence, the sound of rain and ragged breathing. Then Wilson burst in, weapon drawn. Kazumi appeared behind him, firing a stun round. Wilson went down hard. Avery turned. "You shouldn't have come. I wasn't about to let you end this alone." They moved fast, exiting through the east corridor. Security teams were already converging, shouting orders. Avery glanced at Kazumi. We need the pier. Extraction's 30 minutes out. How are we supposed to reach it? Avery smiled grimly. By doing what I was never supposed to do. They broke into a sprint. Bullets tore through the walls around them. Alarms wailed again, a symphony of chaos. Avery fired suppressive bursts, covering Kazami's movement. Every step was a race against time. They burst through the hangar doors, the same place she'd watched Vega and Blackwood hours earlier. Rain slashed down, the ocean roared in the distance. A boat waited at the far end of the dock, small, fast, blacked-out lights. But between them and freedom, 20 armed soldiers. Kazami froze. There's too many. Stay behind me, Avery said. She moved forward slowly, weapon lowered. Lieutenant Thorne, a voice called. You're surrounded, drop your weapon. Avery didn't. Instead, she raised her hands, eyes cold. You're serving a man who sold your brothers for money. Confusion rippled through the line. Ask him about Stillwater, she shouted. Ask him how many of you are supposed to die next week. The hesitation spread. Some lowered their weapons, others looked toward their radios. Behind them, a voice barked over comms Blackwood's. Ignore her, she's compromised. But the doubt had already taken root. Avery seized the moment, launched a flashbang, grabbed Kazami's wrist, and dove for the dock. White light exploded, shouts, chaos. They hit the water hard, cold shock seizing their lungs. Avery kicked, dragging Kazami toward the boat. She climbed aboard, yanked the throttle, and the craft roared to life, slicing through black waves into the storm. As the base receded behind them, Avery looked back, red lights blinking through rain, sirens fatting. Kazami shivered beside her, soaked and trembling. What now? Avery stared ahead, jaw set. Now we make them answer. The wind tore at her hair, rain mixing with tears she didn't bother to hide. She reached into her pocket, feeling the small drive still warm from the upload. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to whisper her brother's name. Elias, it's over. But deep down she knew it was. Because the storm behind her wasn't finished. And somewhere in the darkness, Vega was still alive. Where do soldiers go when they can't trust their own army? That question echoed in Avery Thorne's head as the small boat cut across the dark Pacific, slicing through waves like a fleeing heartbeat. The rain had thinned to mist, but the storm inside her hadn't. She kept her eyes on the horizon, a thin gray line dividing night from dawn. Kazami sat beside her, wrapped in a soaked jacket, shivering. How far can this thing go? Far enough, Avery said. There's a civilian dock east of Point Loma. We'll make landfall there. After that. After that what? Avery didn't answer. She didn't know. For the first time in years, she didn't have orders, only purpose. They reached the dock before sunrise. No patrols, no witnesses. Avery tied the boat silently, motioning for Kazami to follow. Where are we going? The ensign asked quietly. Somewhere we can disappear. They moved through the fog, down narrow streets that smelled of salt and rust. The early morning world was still asleep. Fishermen, gulls, the distant hum of a city that didn't know a war was brewing inside its own ranks. Avery led her into an abandoned boathouse near the harbor. Inside, the air was thick with oil and dust. She checked every corner before lowering her weapon. This will do. Kazami sank against a crate, exhausted. You think they'll stop looking? Avery gave a short, humorless laugh. No, but they'll start with the ocean. We bought a few hours. The sun began to rise, soft light creeping through cracks in the wood. For a moment, it painted Avery's face in gold, and she looked almost human again. Kazami watched her quietly. You've done this before, haven't you? Avery paused. What makes you say that? You move like someone who's been hunted. A long silence. Then Avery exhaled slowly. Kandahar, Kingfisher, we were sent in for intel extraction. simple op, but someone tipped the enemy off. Vega, Kazumi said. Avery nodded. He used us to clean his tracks. My brother found evidence, tried to report it. They killed him. I survived barely. And Vega made sure the world believed I didn't. Kazumi hesitated. Why bring you back into this? Because Vega knows me. He knows I don't quit until I have the truth. So he used that dangled closure like bait. Made me believe I was helping uncover corruption, when in reality I was the cover-up. She looked down, voice quiet. I thought I was exposing the rot, I was feeding it. Kazumi moved closer, her tone gentle. You couldn't have known. Avery's eyes hardened. Doesn't matter, I still played their game, and people died for it. The silence stretched. Only the creak of the boathouse and the distant call of seagulls filled the air. Finally, Kazumi said softly, then let's make sure no one else dies for it. Avery looked at her, really looked. The young ensign who'd risked everything for her. No tactical training, no obligation, just faith. Why are you helping me, Kazumi? The answer came quietly. Because my brother believed in someone like you, said if she ever came back, the truth might still stand a chance. Avery turned away before the emotion could surface. She couldn't afford it, not yet. By noon, Avery had rigged a portable transmitter from scavenged parts, old gear from the boathouse, a solar inverter, a repurposed GPS unit. It wasn't elegant, but it would work. Kazumi frowned at the flickering screen. Signal's weak, you'll need a relay satellite. I know, I'll use the secure uplink I transmitted to earlier. If it's clean, I'll contact an old ally. Who? Avery hesitated. A man named Sergeant Dale Mercer, retired Marine recon, Kingfisher survivor. He's been off-grid since the incident. You trust him? I did once. And if he's compromised? Then we find out fast. She keyed a frequency, static, then a faint voice. Lo, this is Mercer, who the hell? Avery spoke into the mic, Eagle 9. Silence then, Thorn, that can't be. It's me. Jesus Christ, they said you were dead. Not yet, listen carefully. I have proof about Kingfisher, about Vega. I need a safe route inland. Another pause. You're in deep water, kid. Everyone from that op is either dead or running. You sure you want to keep digging? Avery's reply was steady. I don't dig, I finish. Mercer sighed. There's an old safe house east of Temecula. Get there before nightfall. I'll meet you. But Thorn. Yes. If Vega's involved, you're not just fighting a man. You're fighting the machine that built him. The line went dead. They left the coast by stolen truck, a dusty, dented vehicle that rattled on every turn. The California highways stretched endlessly, golden hills rolling under the sun. Kazumi watched the road ahead, her voice quiet. Do you ever regret it? The uniform, the missions, the things we do in the name of orders. Avery thought for a moment. I regret forgetting why I started. Somewhere along the way, the mission became the reason itself. I stopped asking who it served. Do you think that makes you guilty? A long pause. It makes me human. They reached the outskirts of Temecula by dusk. The safe house was a forgotten farmhouse surrounded by dry fields and silence. Mercer was waiting, older, grayer, but still sharp. He wore plain clothes, but his posture screamed Marine. When he saw Avery step out, his jaw tightened. You really are alive. Not sure for how long. He gave a low whistle. You've been busy. Vega's name's all over black circuits. Someone leaked the Stillwater files. You. Transmission confirmed, Avery said, but I don't know who received it. Mercer gestured them inside. Then let's find out. The safe house was lined with old maps, comm gear, and weapon crates. Mercer poured black coffee into metal cups. You want the short version? Avery nodded. Vega's not just running ops. He's part of a shadow command funneling mission budgets into private contracts, fake deployments, ghost teams. Stillwater was the next step, a mass test. You expose that, you collapse an entire funding network. Then why haven't they silenced you? Kazumi asked. Mercer smiled bitterly. Because I don't exist on paper, and because they don't know I have copies of the Kingfisher comm logs. Avery's eyes narrowed. You kept them. Someone had to remember. He slid a drive across the table. Every order, every signal, every second before they left you to die, Vega's voice included. She stared at the small device, her throat tightening. Why give it to me now? Because you're the only one who can do something with it. I've been hiding. You're still fighting. She pocketed the drive silently. Kazumi's voice broke the quiet. So what now? Mercer looked at Avery. You go public, leak the files, get them to someone who can't be bought. Like who? International press, war crime tribunals, hell, anyone but the Pentagon. Avery shook her head. If I go public, they'll bury the truth under classified denials. We need evidence and witnesses, people who saw what happened. Mercer sighed. Most of them are dead. Not all. Avery's mind was already spinning, the faces, the places, the timelines. She could still find someone who'd lived through Stillwater's planning phase, someone who knew what Vega had done. But the thought brought another memory, Elia's, her brother's voice in the sandstorm, his last words, "Don't let them use you, Ave, promise me." She closed her eyes. I made a promise once, time to keep it. Outside, the night stretched vast and cold. Avery stood alone by the fence line, the desert wind tugging at her jacket. The stars overhead felt too far away, like witnesses that didn't care. Mercer approached quietly. You're not gonna sleep, are you? Sleep, a luxury for people who aren't ghosts. He chuckled. You sound like Elia's. Her gaze dropped. He was the better one. No, Mercer said softly. He was the heart, you're the will, and right now the world needs both. For a moment they stood in silence, soldier to soldier, ghosts of the same war. Then Mercer's expression changed. You hear that? Avery did, the faint hum of engines in the distance. Headlights. Multiple vehicles. Down, she hissed. The three of them dropped behind the fence. Convoy, 4 black SUVs. No lights, no plates. Kazumi's voice was barely a whisper. How did they find us? Avery's mind raced. Vega must have tracked the transmission relay. Mercer loaded a rifle, grimacing. They move fast. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they're here. Avery's jaw set. Then we make it count. Kazumi looked terrified. We can't take on a strike team. We're not going to, Avery said. We're going to make them think we did. She sprinted back inside, grabbing smoke grenades, a decoy transmitter, and a flare gun. Within 60 seconds, the field was rigged. Flares on timers, smoke canisters under barrels, motion-triggered distractions. As the first SUV skidded to a halt, explosions of light and smoke erupted across the property. Gunfire followed, blind, chaotic. Avery, Kazumi, and Mercer slipped out the back through a drainage ditch, crawling through mud and brush until the gunfire faded behind them. When they finally emerged half a mile away, Avery looked back, the farmhouse in flames, silhouetted against the dark sky. Mercer sighed. There goes our safe house. Avery stared at the fire. No, there goes their trail. They reached the edge of the old railway line just before dawn, exhausted, bruised but alive. Kazumi sank to the ground, breath ragged. How long can we keep running like this? Avery knelt beside her. As long as it takes. Until what? Until truth stops needing permission. She looked toward the horizon, pale light breaking through the clouds. Because the moment we stop, they win. The wind rose again, carrying the smell of smoke and salt. Somewhere behind them, Vega was regrouping. Somewhere ahead, the next fight was waiting. And for the first time since Kandahar, Avery Thorne didn't feel like a ghost anymore. She felt alive. How do you fight an enemy who signs your paychecks? That was the thought running through Avery Thorne's mind as the freight train thundered past, wind whipping through the darkness. She crouched beside the track with Casimir and Mercer, all three silhouetted against the orange glow of distant flames, the last of the burning farmhouse disappearing into the night. They escaped the kill team, but not the hunt. Avery's voice was low. They'll assume we died in the explosion. That buys us time. Mercer shook his head. Time's not the issue, Thorne. Reach is. Vega's network stretches across every defense contractor in the country. Half the ops you've ever seen have his signature buried under 6 shell companies. Casimir rubbed her temples. So, where do we even start? Avery's eyes hardened. We find the one place money and orders intersect, the communications backbone, the hub where his contracts originate. Mercer frowned. You mean Helios Systems? Avery nodded. Exactly. Helios Systems, a private intelligence contractor, known publicly for data solutions and logistics coordination. Privately, they managed covert mission routing and live data feeds for special operations. It was also Vega's silent fortress. Avery had seen the name in Kingfisher's transmission metadata. Back then, she hadn't understood what it meant. Now she did. Helios wasn't just a company. It was the machine behind the Shadow Command, the heart of the monster she'd been chasing. And if she wanted to kill it, she had to walk straight into its core. They reached the outskirts of Los Angeles by midday, hitching rides on back roads and avoiding checkpoints. Casimir stared out the truck window, voice weary. So this place Helios, what are we expecting? Avery adjusted her sidearm. Security, black-level encryption, no visible weapons but plenty underneath. Think Pentagon discipline with corporate money. Mercer grunted. And no shortage of cameras. You'll never walk through the front door. Who said anything about walking? Avery replied. That night, they observed the Helios campus from a nearby ridge, a sprawling compound of glass and steel, surrounded by electric fencing and floodlights. The main building rose like a blade against the skyline, its mirrored surface reflecting the city's glow. Mercer studied it through binoculars. You'd need a ghost to get in there. Avery's mouth curved faintly. Lucky for us. Casimir frowned. We're really doing this, breaking into one of the most secure facilities in California. Yes. Why not just leak the files? Avery turned to her. Because if we leak without proof of source manipulation, they'll spin it as disinformation. We need live confirmation from their own systems. Once we extract that, the world can't ignore it. Casimir swallowed hard. And if we fail? Avery's gaze didn't waver. Then Vega wins again. Mercer began assembling equipment from a duffel bag, climbing harnesses, suppressed carbines, compact jammers. He looked up at Avery. This feels familiar, doesn't it? She nodded, almost too familiar. Kandahar. Different desert, same ghosts. He gave a tired smile. Then let's haunt them back. The infiltration began at 200. Casimir remained at the van a half-mile out, coordinating the jammer frequency. Signal interference holding steady. You have a 2-minute window before their secondary grid compensates. Copy, Avery replied. We move on my mark. She and Mercer advanced under cover of darkness, 2 figures cutting through the night, using the terrain like allies. They reached the rear perimeter wall, concrete topped with motion sensors. Avery connected a bypass device, overriding the feed for exactly 30 seconds. They climbed fast, dropped silently on the other side. Mercer checked his watch. We're live. Then let's make it count. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and cold metal. Rows of humming servers glowed faintly in the dark, blue lights flickering like mechanical stars. Avery moved like she'd been there before, controlled, efficient, unshakable. She'd spent years understanding enemy systems. Now she was dismantling her own. They reached the primary data vault, a glass-walled chamber filled with servers the size of small cars. Mercer hooked up the relay module. We'll only get one shot at this, once they detect the breach. They'll trace us, Avery finished. I know. Just making sure. Kazemi's voice crackled over comms. You're inside the data core. Network protocols match Pentagon architecture. Vega's fingerprints are everywhere. Patch me into his encrypted directory, Avery ordered. Seconds later, a list of files appeared on her tablet. Project names, operation codes, payment logs. Then one caught her eye, Project Perseus. She opened it. Her breath stopped. It wasn't a new mission. It was a reconstruction plan. A directive to rebuild Kingfisher under a different code name, using the same assets, same targets, same cover story. And at the top of the chain, Vega's signature. Mercer cursed under his breath. He's duplicating the mission, selling it again. Kazemi's voice trembled. For profit. For control, Avery said. Each mission creates chaos. Chaos creates demand. And demand funds their next shadow operation. It's a loop, a self-feeding war. Mercer shook his head. How do we end it? Avery's eyes were cold. By making it visible. She initiated a live data transfer. Files began uploading to a secure satellite relay, not to a journalist or ally, but to the one place Vega couldn't control, the International Military Oversight Network, a watchdog program designed for multilateral transparency. Upload at 10%, Kazemi reported. You're lighting up every alarm in that building, Avery. Good, Avery said. Let them know the ghosts are real. At 30%, the sirens started. At 50%, the lights blazed to life. Mercer swung his weapon toward the door. We've got company. Armed guards poured into the corridor, silent, professional, no hesitation. Avery ducked behind a server rack, returning controlled fire. 80%, Kazemi shouted. Mercer covered her flank, laying suppressive bursts. We're not gonna hold them off much longer. A bullet grazed his arm. He barely flinched. Keep transmitting. Then the elevator doors opened. Vega stepped out, calm, unarmed, flanked by two operators in black armor. He didn't shout, he didn't draw a weapon. He simply stared across the room, eyes locked on Avery. Shut it down, he said quietly. She didn't move. Do it, Thorne, walk away and I'll make this disappear. You can have your life back. Her voice was steady. You already took it. The upload reached 97%. Vega's jaw tightened. Last chance. Avery looked at him. The man who had lied betrayed and turned her grief into a weapon. She raised her weapon. No more chances. He lunged. They collided, slamming into the glass. Shards flew. Avery fought with cold precision, every move born from memory and pain. Vega was stronger, but she was faster, sharper. She wasn't the broken survivor from Kandahar anymore. She was everything he had made, and everything he feared. The struggle crashed into the control panel. Sparks flew. The screen flickered. Kazemi's voice screamed over comms. Upload complete. The moment froze. Vega looked up, realization dawning. You. Avery slammed his head into the console. Lights burst, the power grid short-circuiting. Mercer grabbed her arm. Time to go. They ran, weaving through the smoke and alarms. The compound shook with automatic lockdowns, steel doors slamming down behind them. Avery didn't look back. She didn't need to. Everything Vega had built was burning. They burst out through a maintenance exit, sprinting across the wet asphalt toward the perimeter wall. Bullets chased them. One struck Mercer's shoulder. He stumbled but kept moving. Almost there, Avery shouted. They cleared the wall, hit the ground hard, rolled. The van's engine roared nearby, Casimir waving from the driver's seat. Avery hauled Mercer inside. Go. The van tore down the access road as explosions rippled behind them. Systems overloading, data collapsing. In the rearview mirror, Helios systems glowed like a dying star. 20 miles out, they finally stopped. The air inside the van was thick with smoke, sweat, and silence. Mercer slumped against the wall, bleeding but grinning. You did it, Thorne. You actually did it. Casimir glanced at the monitor. The oversight network confirmed receipt. Vega's exposed. Every file, every transaction, every order. Avery leaned back, eyes closed. Then it's done. But deep inside, she knew it was. The machine wouldn't crumble overnight. Vega's face, bruised, furious, still haunted her mind. He survived, she could feel it. Morning broke over the horizon, golden light spilling across the hills. Mercer bandaged his shoulder, muttering, You know, Thorne, most people fight for their country. You fight for its soul. Avery gave a tired smile. Someone has to. Casimir turned in her seat. So what now? We hide, wait for the headlines. Avery shook her head. No, we stay ahead. Vega will run. He'll try to rebuild under another name. We find him before he does. Casimir frowned. That could take months. Then we start now. She looked out the window, the rising sun reflecting off the van's mirror. For Elias, for everyone who never got to tell their story. Her reflection stared back, scarred, unflinching. No longer the ghost of Kandahar. Now she was something else. A reckoning. How far do you chase a ghost before you become one? Avery Thorne didn't have an answer, not yet. It had been 3 months since the Helios system's breach. 3 months since the world had seen the first cracks in Vega's empire. Headlines screamed, defense contractor under investigation, shadow funding network exposed. But underneath the noise, the machine kept moving, quietly, carefully. Because when power bleeds, it doesn't die, it adapts. And Vega had adapted. Casimir scrolled through a laptop feed inside their safe house, a weather-stained motel somewhere outside Lisbon. Interpol confirms sightings in Tangier, she said. A private security firm registered 2 weeks after Helios collapsed, owner listed as Jonas Vale. No digital footprint before that. Avery didn't look up. She was cleaning her weapon methodically, like meditation. Jonas Vale, she repeated. Too close to Vega to be coincidence. Mercer leaned against the wall, arm still bandaged. If it walks like a snake. Avery finished assembling the pistol. Then we cut off its head. They crossed into Morocco under fake IDs, mercenaries on paper, ghosts in reality. The ferry rocked under the Atlantic wind. Casimir watched the coast draw closer, her voice low. We could stop, you know. You did your part. The files went public. Vega's empire's crumbling. Avery stared at the horizon. Crumbles aren't justice. They're camouflage. You really think he's still pulling strings? I don't think, she said quietly. I know. Tangier was chaos in motion. Markets, traffic, music, heat. The kind of noise that swallowed secrets whole. Vega's new front operated from a gleaming building near the port. Aurelion Global Solutions. Clean name. No history. Heavy security. Mercer scanned the perimeter through binoculars. Same pattern. Private contractors, unmarked vehicles, ex-mill types. He rebuilt faster than I thought. Avery's jaw tightened. He had the infrastructure ready before Helios fell. Casimir adjusted her comms earpiece. What's the plan? We can't exactly storm the place again. No, Avery said. This time we don't break in. We let them open the door. That night they set up across the street in an abandoned café. Casimir hacked into Aurelion's external network, rerouting their access logs. Mercer stood watch by the window. Avery studied the building's rhythm, shift changes, light patterns, vehicle movement. At 200, she finally saw him. Vega. Alive. He walked out of the building with two men in suits, calm, confident, completely unbothered by the global investigation his name had triggered. Her pulse slowed, her training kicked in, observation, not emotion. But emotion didn't listen. Kazumi whispered, "That's him." Avery's voice was barely audible. "Yes." She tailed him for 2 days, never too close, never too far. Vega met diplomats, contractors, men in quiet suits with briefcases full of plausible deniability. He was rebuilding his empire in plain sight, under a new banner. And nobody stopped him. Because he wasn't breaking laws, he was writing them. On the third night, Mercer cornered her outside the safe house. "You're losing sleep, Thorne." "I don't sleep." "Maybe that's the problem." She looked at him sharply. "You think I'm obsessed?" "I think you're chasing something that doesn't end with him. Even if you kill him, it won't bring Elias back." Her voice dropped, steel and sorrow. "This isn't about revenge." Mercer studied her face. "Then what is it about?" Avery hesitated. The words came slowly. "About stopping the kind of man who makes soldiers question what they fight for. Vega isn't a person anymore. He's a message. And if I don't end it, someone else will, with more blood." The next morning she woke to static in her earpiece. Kazumi's voice came through, urgent. "Avery, you need to see this." On the laptop screen, live drone footage showed Vega boarding a convoy heading toward the desert. Destination, City Ifni Airfield. Mercer frowned. "That's decommissioned territory, nothing out there but old hangars and ghosts." Avery loaded her rifle. "Then he'll feel right at home." They followed in silence, dust curling behind the truck. The Moroccan sun burned mercilessly, bleaching the world to gold and shadow. By dusk, they reached the outskirts of the abandoned airfield. Avery raised her binoculars. 2 cargo planes, maybe a dozen guards. "This isn't a meeting, it's an extraction." "Where to?" Kazumi asked. "Wherever his next empire begins." Mercer checked his weapon. "So what's the play?" "We intercept before takeoff, disable the plane, no unnecessary casualties." Kazumi's voice trembled. "And Vega?" Avery's answer was cold. "He doesn't get to leave." The desert wind howled as night fell. Avery crawled across the sand, her sniper rifle steady, eyes locked on the hangar entrance. Inside, Vega was talking to a man she didn't recognize, middle-aged, uniformed, the insignia carefully removed. Even at a distance, she could read Vega's body language, arrogance mixed with control. He handed the man a drive. The man handed him a briefcase. Mercer's whisper crackled in her ear. "Looks like another deal." Kazumi monitored the frequencies. "Avery, wait. I'm picking up encrypted chatter. They're not just transferring money. They're moving personnel. Vega's selling operatives." Avery's chest went cold. "Contractors." "No," Kazumi said. "Soldiers, from active rosters. They're falsifying deployment logs to sell human assets." Avery's finger tightened on the trigger. Mercer hissed, "Don't, not yet." She exhaled slowly. "He's trading lives again." Her scope centered on Vega's head. A simple pull. One breath. Justice or something close to it. But then she saw it, standing behind Vega. A young man, barely 20, military posture, nervous eyes. A recruit. He was holding Vega's briefcase, completely unaware of what he was part of. Avery froze. In her scope, the boy's face overlapped with another, her brother. Elias. The memory hit like shrapnel. The sandstorm, the gunfire, his last words. "Promise me, Ave, don't become them." Her breath shook. Finger still on the trigger, she whispered to herself, "Not like this." She lowered the rifle. Mercer's voice came through, calm but tense. You had the shot. I know. Then why? Because the truth's bigger than his death. If I kill him here, he dies a myth. We need proof. Capture, not execution. Casimir nodded through the calm. Then let's make it count. They moved fast. Mercer circled to the west flank. Casimir approached the comms tower. Avery advanced low through the shadows toward the hangar. 2 guards outside. She silenced them quickly, a hand, a choke, no sound. Inside, Vega was sealing the deal. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "within a month, operations will resume under full immunity. We don't lose wars anymore, we lease them." Avery stepped out of the darkness. "End of the line, Vega." The room froze. He turned slowly. "Avery." Her weapon didn't tremble, hands where I can see them. He smiled. "You won't shoot me, you need me alive." "Don't test that theory." The guards reached for their weapons. Mercer took them down from the shadows with surgical precision. Vega's calm never broke. "So this is how it ends. You running into my world thinking truth changes anything." "It's not about changing it," she said. "It's about exposing it." He tilted his head. "And when they call you a traitor again, when the same system you're saving turns on you, what then?" Her answer was soft. "Then I'll remind them who trained me to fight." Casimir's voice cut through the radio. "Avery, reinforcements inbound, 2 trucks 30 seconds out." Vega smiled. "You should have pulled the trigger." Avery grabbed the briefcase, kicked his legs out and cuffed him. "You're coming with us." "Alive," he taunted. "How merciful." "Not mercy," she said. "Witness." The next few seconds were chaos. Mercer dragged Vega toward the exit. Casimir jammed the hangar doors with a maintenance vehicle. Gunfire erupted outside, the air filled with sand and smoke. They moved like a single organism, covering, moving, firing. Vega shouted through it all, voice venomous. "You think this matters? Another head will grow where I fall." Avery slammed him against the door. "Then we'll cut faster." They reached the convoy truck, dove inside, and peeled out into the desert as bullets whined past. Casimir floored the accelerator, hands trembling on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, the hangar exploded, their planted charges erasing the evidence, but not the truth. An hour later, they stopped in the middle of nowhere. Vega sat cuffed against the truck, his once impeccable composure cracking. Avery stood over him. "You built your empire on silence. It ends tonight." He laughed bitterly. "You really believe the world wants truth? They want comfort. You'll hand them my name, they'll build another me by morning." "Maybe," she said, "but at least they'll know what to call him." Casimir approached, laptop in hand. "I uploaded the live feed. Everything, his confession, the trade deal, the evidence, it's public." Vega's smile vanished. "You think they'll believe it without proof of authenticity?" Avery tossed him the drive Mercer had given her months ago. "Kingfisher logs, your voice, your orders. Consider it authenticated." He stared at her, realization dawning. "You kept it." "I learned from you," she said quietly. "Always keep insurance." For a long time, no one spoke. The wind carried only the low hum of the truck engine and the distant sound of waves. Finally, Vega said softly, almost with admiration, "You've become exactly what I trained you to be." Avery looked at him, calm, tired, resolute. "No," she said, "I became what you feared I'd become." She turned away, someone free. They left him there, bound, alive, his empire burning across every channel in the world. Casimir broke the silence as they drove. "So that's it." "No," Avery said, "it's never it, but it's enough for now." Mercer exhaled, half a laugh, half relief. "You really are something, Thorne." "Just a soldier," she replied. "No," he said, "you're the reason soldiers still believe in something." As the desert faded behind them, the sky began to lighten, that fragile blue before dawn. Avery watched it quietly. Elias would have loved this view, she thought. The kind of sky that looks like forgiveness. She closed her eyes. For once the ghosts were silent. What happens to a soldier when the war ends? But the memories do. That question lingered in Avery Thorne's mind, as the world she'd set ablaze finally began to cool. Vega was gone, taken into custody by international forces. His empire dismantled piece by piece across headlines, tribunals, and congressional hearings. For the first time in years, the machine had stalled. But freedom, real freedom, never came clean. It came with scars. The world knew her name now. Lieutenant Commander Avery Thorne, the woman who had exposed the Black Ops corruption, buried inside the highest levels of military intelligence. The woman who had vanished years ago and returned not as a ghost, but as a reckoning. Every network played her story. Every nation debated her motives. Hero, traitor, whistleblower, soldier. The world couldn't decide which label fit, and she no longer cared. 3 weeks after Vega's arrest, Avery stood alone on a quiet pier in Spain. The ocean stretched endlessly, gentle waves lapping against the wood. She'd come here often before, years ago, with Elias, before Kingfisher, before the lies. The breeze carried the faint smell of salt and diesel, familiar and strangely comforting. Casimir approached quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You still don't sleep much, huh?" Avery gave a faint smile. "Old habits. They're calling you a hero, you know." Avery took the cup, eyes distant. "Heroes don't walk away from bodies." Casimir's voice softened. "You didn't walk away, you walked through it. There's a difference." They sat on the edge of the pier, the sunrise turning the water into molten gold. Casimir broke the silence first. "Interpol says Vega's cooperating. He's nomming partners." "Good," Avery said quietly. "He built his empire on betrayal. Let him drown in it." Casimir hesitated. "They're asking for your testimony." "I sent them everything." "They want you, Avery, on record." She didn't answer. Her eyes followed the waves, endless, restless. Casimir sighed. "If you don't speak, they'll control the narrative." Avery finally turned toward her. "You think they haven't already?" She stood, hands in her pockets, gaze on the horizon. "I didn't do this for redemption," she said softly, "or revenge. I did it because truth doesn't scream, it endures, quietly, even when no one listens." Casimir smiled faintly. "That sounds like something Elias would have said." At his name, Avery's expression softened. He believed there were still good people in the system. "And you?" A pause. "I believe good people build systems, and then bad ones learn how to hide inside them." Casimir frowned. "So what now? You disappear again." Avery's gaze held hers. "Disappear, no, but I'll go where the noise doesn't reach for a while." Later that day, Mercer joined them at a small coastal café, clean clothes, arm in a proper sling this time. He grinned when he saw Avery. "You look almost normal, Thorne, scary but normal." "Don't get used to it," she said. He sat, lowering his voice. "I heard through contacts the oversight network wants to reinstate you, full clearance, advisory position." Avery raised an eyebrow. "After everything I leaked?" "Apparently, they'd rather have you inside than out." Casimir chuckled. "That's the system for you." Mercer's tone shifted. "It's a chance to make real change. You could rebuild what Vega corrupted." Avery stared into her coffee, thoughtful. "Maybe," she said finally. "Or maybe someone new should start fresh." "You mean her?" Mercer asked, nodding toward Casimir. Avery smiled faintly. "She's already better than I was at her age." Casimir's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "You're taking the offer," Avery said simply. "The system needs a voice it hasn't heard before. Yours." Casimir shook her head. "Avery, I can't." "You already did. You believed when no one else did. You stayed when you could have run." Her voice softened. "That's leadership, that's what comes next." The café fell quiet for a moment. Seagulls cried overhead. The world moved on as it always did. Mercer raised his cup in a mock toast, to ghosts and second chances. Avery met his eyes, to the ones who never got theirs. That night she walked alone through the old streets of Cádiz, past lanterns and music and laughter spilling from open doorways. Normal life. It looked foreign to her now, yet strangely beautiful. She stopped by the harbor, where fishing boats rocked gently under the moonlight. The reflection shimmered like fire across the water. A child was laughing nearby, a sound that made her chest ache with something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind won by violence, but the kind that lived quietly, uncelebrated. Her phone buzzed once, an encrypted message, unknown source. She hesitated, then opened it. They're rebuilding in the east. New name, new flag, you'll know when it's time. A long silence. Then she typed one word. Understood. And deleted it. Back at the motel, Casimir sat by the window, watching the news. Vega's face filled the screen, hollow, defeated, half hidden behind security glass. Avery entered quietly, dropping her duffel bag on the bed. Another interview. Casimir nodded. He's talking, giving names. It's like he wants everyone to burn with him. Avery shrugged. That's the thing about men like him. They don't believe in truth. They believe in leverage. She glanced at the TV, studying him. He looks smaller now. He is smaller, Casimir said. You took away his empire. No, Avery said softly. He built it on silence. I just stopped staying quiet. Mercer appeared in the doorway, holding train tickets. You sure about this, Thorne? You walk out now, you'll never be anonymous again. I stopped being anonymous the day I survived Kandahar. He smirked. Fair. Casimir stood uncertain. Where will you go? Avery smiled faintly. Anywhere the uniform doesn't reach. Maybe north, maybe nowhere. Casimir hesitated. If they come for you again. Avery looked at her, eyes calm. Then they'll find out what it means to fight someone with nothing left to lose. Before dawn, she left quietly, no farewell, no note. Just the faint creak of the motel door and the sound of the sea outside. Her footsteps echoed down the empty street. In her duffel, a passport, a knife, and a folded photograph. Elia's smiling, sand on his face, sun behind him. She slipped it into her jacket pocket and walked until the sky turned pink. Days turned to weeks. Some said she disappeared into Northern Europe. Others claimed she joined humanitarian operations under an alias. A few whispered she'd been seen in war zones, always alone, always silent, helping civilians where soldiers couldn't go. No one knew for sure. But in the circles that mattered, in the quiet conversations between operators, intelligence officers, and soldiers, her story lived on. Not as propaganda, not as legend, but as a reminder. Sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. Sometimes it's the one everyone underestimates. The one who listens, who bleeds quietly, who fights not for medals but for meaning. Avery Thorne had been mocked, ignored, underestimated, and in the end she changed the course of a war that wasn't even declared. Not with brute force, not with vengeance, with truth. Months later, in a briefing room somewhere in D.C., a young female recruit sat nervously at a table surrounded by instructors. When asked why she wanted to join naval intelligence, she smiled faintly and said, "Because of Lieutenant Commander Thorne." The room fell silent. One of the older instructors leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Careful what you wish for, kid. That woman didn't follow orders." The recruit met his gaze, steady and unflinching. Maybe that's why she mattered. Far away on a quiet shoreline under an overcast sky, a woman stood alone, hands in her jacket pockets, hair blowing in the wind. No rank, no insignia. just a face softened by time and solitude. She watched the waves roll in, one after another, relentless. Her voice quiet, thoughtful, almost lost in the wind. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. A pause. Elias, I kept my promise. She turned and walked into the mist. The sea swallowed her figure. The legend remained.